For our 4-year anniversary, he told me to dress up, said we were going somewhere special. He picked me up, took me to dinner, then left me there alone. No wallet, no ride, no explanation. 2 weeks later, I found out what that night was really about. For our 4-year anniversary, he said, I want you to dress up. We're going somewhere special. And just like that, I melted. Because after everything, after the quiet seasons, the missed moments, the way love had started to feel more like routine than romance, I still wanted to believe this man had something left in him worth holding on to. I thought maybe he remembered the first time we met, the way he used to watch me like I was the last miracle on earth. I thought maybe this was the moment, the turning point. A proposal, a trip, a table set for two under soft lights and new promises. So I said yes. And I dressed up. I wore the dress he once said made me look like a dream, a deep wine-colored satin that shimmered under even the faintest light. I curled my hair, applied a soft gloss, slipped into heels that made me feel like the version of myself I missed. I stood by the window, waiting. When he arrived, he looked perfect. Pressed shirt, crisp blazer. His cologne, my favorite, the one he wore the first night he kissed me. But he was quiet. Not cold, just distant. Like he had something on his mind but didn't want to ruin the surprise. I thought maybe nerves. Maybe he was finally about to ask the question I had long stopped bringing up out loud. Still, I smiled. Clung to the hope like it was a gift he handed me in silence. The restaurant was beautiful. Candles flickered on every table. Low music played overhead. The kind of place that whispered elegance and intention. He pulled out my chair, brushed my hand as I sat. For a moment, I believed we were back in the beginning. We ordered wine, shared an appetizer. He didn't say much, but when he looked at me, really looked at me, I swore I saw something tender beneath the surface. Halfway through the meal, I reached across the table. So, I asked, what's the occasion? He smiled faintly, then stood. Be right back, he said, patting his pocket. And then he walked away. I waited, sipped water, reapplied my lipstick, smoothed my dress. 5 minutes. 10, 15, no return, no message, no call. I checked the hallway near the restrooms. Nothing. The servers passed by, asking if I was okay. I nodded. I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want to believe what I was beginning to feel. I sat back down. Another 10 minutes passed, still no sign. I reached for my phone to text him, but froze. I didn't have it. I didn't have anything. He had said, gently but firmly before we left, leave your purse. I've got everything tonight. I thought it was romantic. I thought it meant he was taking care of me. Instead, I sat there alone. No wallet, no phone, no way home. Just a wine glass still half full and 100 eyes quietly watching the woman who had clearly been abandoned. The buzz of excitement I carried into the restaurant had curdled into something sour. Shame, embarrassment, confusion. Every second that passed, I waited for him to come back and say, sorry, I got caught up, I'm here. But he didn't. He never came back. Minutes passed, then more. The server came back again, trying to mask the pity in her voice. Would you like to order dessert while you wait? I smiled tight fake. He'll be right back. I don't know why I kept saying that. Maybe I believed it. Maybe I needed someone to believe it, because if I admitted it out loud, it would be real. I sat there, trying to hold on to some version of dignity, even as my insides twisted. 35 minutes. The waiter refilled my water and glanced toward the hallway, clearly wondering if I had been stood up. At some point, I stood up and walked toward the restrooms, pretending I needed to use them. But the hallway was empty. No sign of him, no footsteps, no jacket on the hook, just silence. I returned to the table and finally let my smile fall. My hands trembled under the napkin on my lap. I reached for my phone, but it wasn't there. Because he told me to leave my purse in the car. I've got everything tonight, he said, like he was doing me a favor. I had no phone, no ID, no money, no way to contact anyone, just me, alone, at a table that was never meant to be shared. I whispered to the server, I think I need help. She nodded, kind and soft, and led me to the host stand where they let me use the restaurant's phone. I dialed my best friend's number from memory. Thank God I still remembered it. She answered on the second ring. One word into the call, just, hey, and she knew something was wrong. She came to get me. While I waited, I sat on a bench just outside the restaurant, wrapped in a stranger's coat that one of the staff had quietly draped over my shoulders. I watched happy couples walk past me, holding hands, laughing, toasting inside. And I was a ghost in satin. A woman dressed for a dream and waking up in a nightmare. It was nearly midnight by the time I made it home. I half expected to see his car in the driveway, to hear some excuse, to find him sheepish and full of stories about a dead phone or food poisoning. But no, the driveway was empty. My phone, left on the kitchen counter, had no missed calls, no texts, not even a single message from him asking if I was okay. I tried calling, straight to voicemail, again and again. Nothing, not that night, not the next day, not the day after, just a silence so loud it pressed against my chest like a weight I couldn't lift. And what stung the most wasn't the confusion, it wasn't even the fear. It was the humiliation. 4 years. 4 years of love, laughter, late-night talks, making plans, and that's how it ended? Not with a fight, not with a conversation, not even with a lie, just a vanishing act. As if I were an appointment he forgot to cancel. As if I were disposable. I told people we had a misunderstanding. I said he had an emergency, that he'd explain soon. I lied for him, to my friends, to myself. Because saying he left me would have forced me to ask the question I wasn't ready to face. Why would someone who claimed to love me do this? I didn't eat the next day. Couldn't sleep. I kept checking my phone like a habit I couldn't break, waiting for it to light up with his name. It never did. The world kept turning, but I didn't. I was frozen in the moment he stood up from that table and never looked back. And for 2 long, hollow weeks, I was haunted by one question: what did I do to deserve this? The thing about silence, it's not quiet, it's loud, deafening actually. Especially when it follows something that was once full of life. For 2 whole weeks, I lived inside that silence. No calls, no texts, no updates, no explanations, just gone. Like 4 years was a switch he decided to flip off. The first day after he vanished, I made excuses for him. Maybe something happened, maybe his phone died, maybe he was overwhelmed, maybe he was sick. By day 3, those excuses started to rot. They didn't make sense anymore. They smelled like denial. I called, texted, left voicemails. All unanswered. His social media? Silent. No new photos, no tweets, no Instagram stories, just blank. As if he had vanished from everywhere at once. But I knew better. I knew he hadn't disappeared. He was just avoiding me. He hadn't blocked me. He just didn't care enough to respond. I didn't tell anyone what really happened. I couldn't. The shame wrapped around my throat like a scarf that got tighter with every question. You two do anything special for your anniversary? Oh, is Liam working late again? Haven't seen him post you in a while. I smiled, lied, said he was out of town, said he was planning something. I couldn't bring myself to say the truth out loud. He ghosted me, after 4 years. People get ghosted after first dates, after awkward hookups, not after years of shared life, but that's exactly what happened. And the worst part? I started blaming myself. I went over that night in my head like a crime scene, again and again. Did I talk too much? Did I not look good enough? Was it my tone, my timing, my dress? I thought about the moments we had in the weeks leading up to our anniversary, the small distance that had crept in, the times he seemed distracted, cold, absent even when he was beside me, but he'd still kissed me. He'd still said, "I love you." He still made promises about summer plans, about someday moving in together, about when we get married. It all felt real, right up until it didn't. And then the silence. It was the 14th day when I got the message. An anonymous Instagram account. No profile picture, no bio, just a single DM, "You deserve to know, sorry." Attached was a screenshot. I opened it, and everything stopped. There he was. Same outfit, same night, different restaurant. Smiling, with another woman, her head resting on his shoulder, his arm wrapped around her waist. The caption, "New beginnings, right where I belong." My breath caught in my throat, not because I didn't expect it, but because now it was real. That night was never for me. The dinner, the silence, the vanishing, it was all a setup. A distraction. A way to buy himself time and ease his own guilt while he slipped out the back door of our relationship and into someone else's arms. He didn't ghost me because he was lost. He ghosted me because he'd already moved on, And he didn't even have the decency to say goodbye. He let me sit there in that dress, in that restaurant, heart full of hope, while he was somewhere else, celebrating new beginnings. And just like that, the silence ended, not with a word from him, but with the truth. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't even text him. I just stared at that photo. At the man who once said he couldn't live without me. At the smile that now looked like a stranger's. At the caption that felt like a dagger dipped in smugness. And then I started to breathe differently, not because I was okay, but because now I was awake. I stared at the photo for a long time, not because I didn't believe it, because I did. Because deep down, some part of me had already known. You don't love someone for 4 years and not feel them slipping through your fingers. But what stunned me wasn't the betrayal. It was the calculation. The timing, the effort, the choreography of it all. He didn't just leave me. He planned it. He looked me in the eyes that morning, told me to wear something nice. He picked the restaurant, pulled out my chair, let me dream, let me hope, and then he left me there, while walking into someone else's arms. That wasn't cowardice. That was cruelty, clean-shaven cruelty, wrapped in cologne and candlelight. That screenshot, the one from the burner account, was time-stamped. Same night, same hour. The exact moment I was sitting alone at a table in satin, staring at the restroom door, he was somewhere else, grinning into someone else's wine glass. He didn't leave because he was confused. He didn't leave because we grew apart. He left because he was already gone. And the anniversary dinner, it wasn't romance. It was a decoy, a distraction, a delay tactic so he could walk away clean, so he wouldn't have to explain, wouldn't have to look me in the eye while tearing everything down. He gave me silence so he could buy himself a head start. And here's the thing about betrayal. It rewrites everything. I replayed every moment now with different subtitles. That quiet car ride, not nerves, just guilt. The forced smile at dinner, a mask. That soft be right back, a lie. It all clicks differently when you realize the man sitting across from you isn't planning forever, he's planning an exit. And what made it worse was the caption. New beginnings, right where I belong. As if I were some lesson he had to endure. Some chapter he had to outgrow, as if loving me had been the problem all along. He turned our anniversary into a graveyard. He buried 4 years without saying a single word. And still, I said nothing. I didn't rage. I didn't post a call-out, didn't message the new girl, didn't even confront him. Because the kind of revenge I was beginning to feel, it didn't need an audience. It didn't need noise, it needed precision. So I opened a folder on my laptop, labeled Bills and Receipts. 4 years worth of Can You Spot Me? Of I'll Pay You Back Next Friday. 4 years of unpaid debts hidden in smiles and apologies. He forgot I kept records. Forgot I kept the login to our shared cloud folder. The one with old lease agreements, credit card receipts, the utilities I put in my name because his credit was still recovering. He left me at a dinner table like I was nothing, but he left fingerprints on everything. And if he thought walking away made him free, he hadn't met the woman I was about to become. He didn't just leave me. He left me to be seen, abandoned in public. No wallet, no ride. No explanation. That wasn't just carelessness, it was choreography. He wanted me to feel discarded, to see myself sitting there surrounded by strangers and candlelight and believe I was unworthy, unchosen. He wanted to walk away clean while I sat in the wreckage of something I didn't even know had ended. And for a few days, it worked. I felt disposable, like trash wrapped in ribbon. Like something that had been useful once, but had now expired. I replayed everything. The dinner, the silence, the smug smile in that photo. I let it hollow me out, let it echo. But then something shifted. Humiliation gave way to heat. And the moment shame turned into anger, real, steady, ice-cold anger, I stopped mourning. I started watching. I started digging. And what I found was filth. He hadn't just left me emotionally devastated. He had left me financially exposed. I checked my credit report. Saw a credit card I didn't recognize opened in my name. A second one I did recognize maxed out. Charges I never made, fees I never saw. He used my credit like it was his inheritance. Left his name on utility bills I was still paying. Let rent bounce in apartments he no longer lived in. Claimed he'd get around to it. never did. He once said, "I'd be nowhere without you." I didn't realize he meant that literally. I had been his lifeline. He had built his comfort on the back of my loyalty, and then he walked. Not only thinking I wouldn't fight back, but convinced I couldn't, but I could, and I would. I took screenshots of every bill, every message, every false charge, every old lease where I was still the cosigner. I made calls, filed disputes, opened claims, froze the accounts, locked the credit, tied every loose end until there was nowhere for him to hide. He once said I was too emotional, but he forgot emotion, when channeled, becomes strategy. And I was done being the girl at the table. I became the woman behind the curtain. I didn't announce what I was doing, didn't post vague quotes or call him out online, didn't text him a single threat. Because silence. Silence is terrifying when it stops being weakness and starts being intentional. And quietly, steadily, I watched his walls begin to crack. I heard from mutual friends that his bank account was frozen, that his name was being pulled from a lease, that his new girlfriend had gone suspiciously quiet. That's the thing about people like him, they build castles on borrowed bricks. And when the lender shows up, everything falls. He thought he broke me. He thought I'd beg for closure, cry in the dark, mourn what we were, but I didn't mourn, I audited, I reclaimed, I sharpened. Because you don't just leave a woman behind and expect her to stay small. You don't feed her silence and expect her to starve. You don't humiliate someone in public and expect them to disappear quietly. I disappeared, yes, but not quietly. I disappeared into focus, into resolve. And by the time he realized it, it was already too late. You don't just leave someone like me behind. And walk away clean, not after 4 years, not after what you took, not after how you left, so I stopped crying. Stopped wondering, stopped hoping for an apology that would never come, and I started collecting pieces. Because revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a spreadsheet. Sometimes it's an affidavit. Sometimes it's quiet calls to the right people and perfectly timed signatures. First, the accounts. The ones with my name tied to them, closed, frozen, locked. The charges he made in my name, contested, reversed, flagged for fraud. I contacted the credit bureau, filed the reports, attached the evidence, let the legal paper trail do what tears never could, and when they asked if I wanted to press charges, I didn't say no, because this wasn't just heartbreak. It was theft, it was identity misuse. It was betrayal with receipts. Then came the girlfriend, the one from the photo. I didn't send her a message out of jealousy, or spite, or the need to one-up her. I sent it because she deserved to know the man who whispered new beginnings in her ear had still been living off the woman he ghosted. I sent her screenshots, timelines, proof, no words, no insults, no drama, just facts, just truth. Wrapped in silence and cold, clean clarity, she blocked me, but a week later his profile vanished too. Sometimes karma just needs a little nudge. He tried to reach out once. An email, short, defensive. You didn't have to go that far. That was the subject line. No apology, no ownership. Just that blaming me for the fallout of the chaos he created. I didn't respond. Because what do you say to a man who set fire to your life and then complains about the smoke? He left me in public, humiliated. I left him in private, exposed. He thought I'd crumble. But I built. He thought he discarded me. But I redefined myself. And when the dust settled, here's what was left. No money in his name. No access to mine. No lease. No girlfriend. No cover. Just a man sitting in the ruins of the comfort he didn't build. Because the woman who did finally walked away. I didn't gloat, didn't brag, didn't post vague quotes about healing or growth. I stayed quiet because real power doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly. It moves wisely. It moves when the time is right, then disappears. And when he finally realized what he'd lost, the silence hit harder than any speech ever could. He left me at a table, sat across from me in candlelight, looked me in the eyes, let me believe love was still alive. And then he got up and never came back. No goodbye, no closure, just cold air and a door that never reopened. He thought he broke me, thought I'd be too embarrassed to speak, too heartbroken to move, too small to fight back. But here's what he didn't expect. That silence, that night, that walk home with mascara-streaked cheeks and blistered heels, it wasn't the end of my story, it was the beginning of his. of his unraveling. Because when he left me sitting there, walletless, phoneless, and forgotten, he thought he'd discarded me. But what he really did was free me from the loop, from the guilt, from the exhausting ache of trying to prove I was worthy of being chosen. I never needed his ring, never needed his future. What I needed was to remember my worth. And nothing will remind a woman of her power more than surviving the fire she never started and choosing to rebuild without him in the blueprint. I didn't leave him with a scene. I left him with silence. I didn't chase closure. I let karma speak on my behalf. I didn't ruin his life. I simply stopped holding it up. And now, he's exactly where he belongs, outside of my story. And me, I'm not at that table anymore. I'm at a new one, wiser, stronger, and finally sitting across from someone who doesn't leave when things get quiet myself. So if you're listening to this right now, wondering if you should have fought harder, begged louder, held on longer, here's your answer. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away quietly and let them hear the echo of your absence forever. Thank you for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. I love you all.